Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Lydslunacysubmissions here, and today we're back for another episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepypasta, a series where I crochet something creepy and talk about something even creepier, like scary stories from around the internet. For today we are going to hold the crochet. So, for this video we are going to be reading some viewer submitted stories. If you don't already know, I do have a submissions email, so feel free to send me your scary story for a chance to hear it featured on my TikTok or here on YouTube. The email is just lydslunacysubmissions@gmail.com. It's always in the description down below. This is the Baphomet that I was working on in my previous video that I forgot to give you guys the reveal of, so if you're here from that video, thank you so much for watching. My apologies. Baphomet's crochet pattern, as well as this guy himself, will be available for purchase on my Etsy shop. The link will be in the description. We do have quite a diverse selection of stories today, if I do say so myself. I'm very excited to share them with you. So without further ado, let's get into today's scary stories. Okay, so story one is a paranormal experience had by this man whose wife apparently loves my videos. So if you're this guy's wife, hi, thank you so much for watching. Anyway, he says he's been dying to tell this story, so let's get into it. A few years ago, my buddy Torres and I were stationed in a tiny installation in the middle of nowhere, Texas, like 2 hours from anywhere that's not just a gas station. We were in this course that is widely regarded by some to be the most technically complex course in the entire US Army. We would frequently get to class at 6 a.m. and wouldn't leave until it closed at 10:30 p.m. So, Torres and I had just gotten out of class and we were walking back after getting dinner to continue studying for a test the next day. We had gotten permission from our instructors to use the big classroom since the other ones were being cleaned. Just for context, the big classroom could sit like 250 people in what is essentially an auditorium with computers and desks instead of reclining seats. When we got there, we noticed that we were somehow the only people there to study, so we figured we could and should stay as long as we wanted. This classroom was in the back of the building and had light switches that turned off automatically after a certain amount of time. Important to note, the sensor to the lights was on the stage where the teacher would be, so they would be the ones to turn it on. We got into the classroom at 8:30 p.m. and sat all the way up at the top next to the exit. We were exhausted, but still we knew we had to get some more time in before the test, so we planned on leaving at closing time, 10:30 p.m. It started with my computer like 10 minutes after we arrived. Small things at first, barely noticeable. My mouse would move a bit sporadically to the left or right. No big deal though, since the government only gave us the worst computers anyway. But I did start to notice when my mouse would constantly drift, even when I let go. I saw it drift to the shutdown button and I was so confused. Then my screen started flickering bad, like a strobe light. I honestly thought that my computer was absolutely trashed, and that's when I felt cold. Like more cold than I have ever felt in my life. And I'm from Colorado, but I'm telling you, I went from okay-ish to seeing my breath in less than a heartbeat. I felt the hairs on my arms, neck, and legs stand on end. All I could think about was get out of here. But after I felt it, I was even more frightened because it didn't feel like that was my own thought. Like as if somehow something that wasn't me used my own brain to think that. To this day, I can't even describe how it felt. I then felt sick. Absolutely sick to my stomach, like I had hot burning acid in my gut and was about to spew all over my desk. My head was spinning. I felt so lightheaded that I almost couldn't see. That's when the lights turned off. I saw my screen and my mouse was moving. It moved to the bottom right, and I swear to God when I say that this actually happened to me, my mouse clicked. It clicked on start. And when I saw it move up to the option shut down was when I felt like I needed to say something, anything. I said, Torres, look at my screen. What the fuck is going on? I feel like I need to go to the hospital. He didn't say a word to me. I felt him tap my shoulder, and I looked up at him since my head was between my legs from feeling so nauseous. He didn't even look at me. His screen still flickering, I could see his face clearly. He was staring at something like he's trying to see through it. Staring at something like if he blinked once more, he would die. And he was looking dead straight ahead of him, slightly down towards the stage. I need you to understand this. I am not a person to believe in weird things like this. My job demands a logical man, and that's what I am. I don't remember ever believing in the supernatural in my life, nor being particularly scared of it, until I looked up from my desk. It was a shadow. It didn't look human, but maybe more like a mist. A mist so dark it was almost a solid color of black. It had the most red, hate-filled eyes. It had to have been almost 20 feet tall. The moment I saw it, it was like something had glued my eyes open. I couldn't look away. I could only stare and definitely try to find something, anything to correct this thing standing in front of me, almost 100 feet away. I remember thinking so many things, drawing the same conclusions before my evidence got to me. Oh, well, this isn't real because blank. That's when I saw the light switch. It had a bulb so you could find it in the dark. It was standing in front of the light switch. It was real. It was real and standing just in front of me. I felt powerless, like all it needed was to will it into existence, that I melt into a pile of mush and blood on the floor and it would be so. To be honest, I started to cry. I was so scared. We stared at it for what seemed like forever, not wanting to give in and run because it felt almost pointless. We sat there in silence, but that's when it made its move. Slowly at first. It rose up from the ground, and before it hit the ceiling, just as Taurus and I had our head cranked up, it charged. Like a bull or a bear, it charged at us. Desks and chairs flew back as it passed by, and it let out a roar that almost felt unreal, like a human scream, but with so much power I felt it in my chest. Taurus and I scrambled out of our chairs, ran screaming. We tore down the hallway and forgot everything inside. It belonged to whatever the fuck that was now. We sprinted down the hall and ran all the way out of the building. It took what felt like forever to catch my breath when I got outside. I'd ran so fast that I rolled into the ground to slow down once I got outside. Our conversation was a mix of tears and blubbering until we checked the time. It was midnight. We had been in there for hours, and yet my computer started to screw up at most like 10 minutes after we got inside at 8:30. That was when we saw that the hallway lights inside the building, through the window door we just ran out of, were off. Those lights are never off. They ran on a backup generator for the building since they were emergency lights as well. Something had turned them off. It wasn't until the next morning, after a sleepless night, that we both talked to our instructor, and that is what really scared me to this day. He told us that he tried to call us and tell us that the whole building was going to be closed that night for the cleaning crew, and the doors would be locked the moment we all went to dinner. Seemingly, there was no physical way for us to have even opened the doors to get inside after we left that day, and yet, me and him both shared that night, and to this very day, it was the most intense feeling I have ever had. Okay, next story. We broke every Appalachian rule on purpose. Let's see where this goes. I'm not sure how to start this email, so we will just get into it. I recently went to Georgia with my aunt and her kids, and we were planning to go for a one-night stay at an Airbnb with the full intent to break as many rules in the Appalachian Mountains as possible, such as, but not limited to, whistling, saying our names, staring into the tree line, saying Wendigo, Skinwalker, and demonic possession, and playing paranormal games such as Cat Scratch, Red Door, Yellow Door, Sandman, and more. While we were at the Airbnb, we decided to get into the hot tub. At least 7 out of the 9 of us were in there when we all saw a deer run behind a tree shortly after we broke 2 rules, but we did not see it emerge on the other side. When we walked down to check it out, we saw what looked like burned soil. We thought it was weird, but didn't really care, except for me. I was the only one who believed in the paranormal and was the only one trying not to break any rules. I think that what we saw was a not deer, but I'm not sure. Later, as we were in the hot tub, I swear I could hear yelling for help in the mountains. I wasn't too worried, as it sounded close, meaning it was far away, but it creeped me out because no one else heard it. They were all focused on the fireflies. As I expressed my concern, they all said it was in my head for being too nervous, but I knew what I heard. Later that night, as we were all about to sleep, we decided to watch horror stories. My dumbass thought it was an amazing idea. It was not. About 45 minutes into listening to one of your stories, actually, we all began to hear tapping and whispering. That's kind of cool. Thanks, guys. We all thought it was my aunt's kid, and we all relaxed until someone pointed out that my aunt's kid was asleep in the other room. To clarify, he is a loud sleeper, and we could hear him in the other room. Knowing that, everyone turned on the lights, and the noises stopped. The tapping, the whispering, the crickets, the deer, the foxes, everything was silent. I felt this thick air emerge around us, as if we were in danger and couldn't figure out why. Then my aunt pointed out the glass beside me had fingerprints on it from the outside. Sure, one of us could have touched it, but here's the thing. They were very long, like Slender Man long fingerprints. Everyone was terrified, so we all decided to go to bed. To help you get a better picture, the Airbnb is 2 levels, but to get to the other level, you have to go downstairs, which requires you to go outside. Okay, that's bizarre. Outside, there is gravel surrounded by woods, and in front of that is our van. Beside the van is a path that leads down to a shed that is locked. To get to where I had to sleep, I had to go downstairs, past the hot tub, and past the spot where the deer disappeared just to get into my room. The room was separated in half by a pool table and air hockey. I think that's what it's called. There were 2 bunk beds, 2 windows, and a TV. As I went downstairs with my cousins, I looked over and I swear I could see someone or something that was pitch black and had no eyes peeking at me over the path that goes down to the shed. Okay, so you got back to your room and then you look outside and you see something peeking at you. That's horrifying. I tried telling my cousins, but they were already in the room ready for bed. I decided to ignore it, thinking I was just tired. I mean, I had just a 5-hour flight, hadn't slept the night before, and it was around 2:30 at night, so I just chalked it up to sleep-deprived hallucinations. Horrible mistake. What I should have done was gone back upstairs, told everyone we needed to leave, and get the hell out of that cabin. But I didn't. A choice I will regret. Later that night, I was about to fall asleep when an intense feeling of dread came over me. I wanted to look behind me, but something told me that if I did, I wouldn't like what I saw. As the dread grew stronger, tapping on the windows began again. That's when I realized the door was not locked, and if it was tapping on the windows, it was tapping on the patio leading to the door. Slowly, I heard massive steps making their way to the door, and I knew I was screwed. I looked over as the door opened, and slowly, a long, leathery fingered hand crept in, followed by a large, skinny, almost skinless body. Think of Tommy from Life of Luxury. Life of Luxury mentioned. That is an insane reference. I'll insert a photo if you don't know what they're talking about. Also, if you don't watch Life of Luxury, what are you doing? That's what this thing looked like. I closed my eyes and hoped and prayed it didn't notice I saw it. Slowly it crept over to me, and I swear I could hear its bones cracking, a noise I will never forget. It reached me and leaned over me before I felt something touch my back, and an ice-cold feeling washed over me. But as quickly as it entered, it was suddenly gone. The terror, the dread, the horrifying reality that I made the mistake of breaking the rules. It all washed away instantly. But I knew we had to get out of there now. I waited 30 minutes before I jumped up, sprinted out, and went inside, waking everyone up and saying, "We need to get the fuck out of here now. It will kill us all." The rest is rather boring. All I will say is that on the way out, we saw weird deer, heard screeching, and smelled rotting bodies. Sorry for the bad writing. I'm horrible with grammar. I just wanted my story out there as it actually happened only 7 days ago. I have whiplash. You had me in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. That ending was rather anticlimactic. We're just gonna skim over the smell of the rotting bodies? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna take that at face value, take it for what it is. You guys can do with that information what you will, and we're gonna move on to the next story. And also, thank you very much to this person for your support, and I did like your Life of Luxury reference, so I'll give you a pass. On to the next story. Hi. I really like your videos and enjoy watching them a lot. For as long as I can remember, I've loved horror movies and scary stories, whether it was day or night. We could say it's always been one of my hobbies. Who doesn't like a little chill, right? I'm still a teenager, but I remember watching scary stories when I was 9 years old, maybe even younger. It always fascinated me. Sometimes I would wonder what it would be like to be inside a scary story myself. I think that happened. Honestly, that's really interesting because I can relate to that myself. I have a couple ghost stories, I guess you could say, paranormal experiences, but nothing truly horrifying has happened to me like you normally hear in these kinds of stories. So I actually really relate to you on that. I live in a village with around 1,000 people. My parents and I live near the center of it, right across the road from a church. As I got older, I moved into a different bedroom because our house is fairly large and I couldn't keep sharing a room with my sister. I mentioned that I only live with my parents, but technically my grandmother lives with us as well. She's very sick and doesn't have much time left. She stays in my old room and can no longer move around by herself. When I moved bedrooms, I moved upstairs. My room is next to my sister's old room. Since she studies in a city about an hour away, nobody else really lives upstairs. The thing is, I have 2 windows. From one, I can see the church tower. From the other, I can see part of the graveyard. Not all of it, but enough. I can see the children's graves and the area where my grandfather is buried. I'm not afraid of it. In fact, I usually joke about it with my friends. I think it's funny telling people I have a graveyard outside my bedroom window. The church and my interest in creepy things always felt connected somehow. My family doesn't believe in any paranormal stuff. Unlike me. Anyway, enough background. Here's the story. The first part happened around a year or two ago. One evening, I got bored and decided to go for a walk. I called my best friend, who also loves scary stories, and we chatted while I walked through the village. First, it felt normal. We were laughing and talking like always. As time passed, it got darker and darker until the only light came from the street lamps. I have a habit of constantly checking behind me when I walk alone. I guess it just makes me feel safer. By that point, the night had fully settled in. The air felt colder. I had started walking back home and was approaching an abandoned house that always creeped me out. The upstairs window had no glass in it, just a frame. A white torn cloth hung from it like a curtain. I hated looking at it. As I passed by, a chill suddenly ran down my spine. I looked around. That's when I saw it. A tall, dark figure riding an electric scooter directly toward me. I couldn't see its face, only its eyes. They were staring directly at me. I nearly jumped. Then I blinked and it was gone. I ran all the way home. At the time, I convinced myself it was my imagination. I thought maybe that creepy window had gotten into my head. But something even stranger happened 2 months ago. I have a friend from school who became really close to me. We often went on evening walks together. One night around 7 p.m., she asked if I wanted to go for a walk again. I told my mom and she agreed as long as I was home by 8:30. When I met up with my friend, she told me she had to be home by 8. Perfect. I could walk her home and still have enough time to get back. We ended up having so much fun that neither of us noticed how late it had become. By the time we checked the clock, she was already running behind. We hurried toward her house. It was fully dark outside by then, but I insisted on walking her all the way home. She's younger than me and I didn't want anything happening to her, especially because a man known for reckless driving lived on her street. When we finally reached her house, I was about to say goodbye when I looked down the road I would need to take home. There were no streetlights for nearly 50 meters. I laughed and pointed it out. I feel like I'm in a horror movie, I joked. My friend offered me a flashlight. I accepted, then I started walking. As long as there were still streetlights, I felt okay. Then my mom called. I was already late. My phone only had around 10% battery left. I apologized, got scolded a little, and hung up. I turned on some music but kept the volume low so I could still hear what was happening around me. Then I reached the dark section of road. The flashlight illuminated the ground ahead of me. The cold returned. I kept checking behind me, then one time I looked forward and froze. There was a small bridge ahead of me. A river runs through our village and the bridge crossed over it. The bridge was about 20 meters away. That's when I saw it. A skinny, unnaturally tall figure climbed out of the river and onto the bridge. It didn't stand upright, it crouched. The figure was completely black, but I could clearly see its eyes. It lowered itself onto all fours. Its head hung so low that its chin was only a few centimeters above the road, and it stared directly at me, like a predator watching prey. I didn't know what to do. Then, thankfully, I remembered something from all those horror stories I loved. I immediately sent my live location to my best friend. Then I called my mom. I couldn't stop looking at my phone. When I finally looked up again, the figure was gone. My mom answered, and I asked if she could come get me. She said no, that she had been drinking. I expected that answer. My parents usually drank alcohol most evenings. I apologized and told her I was scared. She asked why. I tried explaining that I had seen something, but I didn't tell her exactly what. She started scolding me again for staying out too late. I finally snapped. I told her I already knew I was in trouble and that right now I just needed comfort. After a long pause, she told me to keep talking. About anything. So I did. Told her my favorite color, my favorite foods, anything that came to mind, all while I slowly walked forward. Eventually I passed the bridge, then I reached the nearest house with the lights on. At that exact moment, a bird suddenly burst from a nearby tree. I jumped. Then I looked back. A deer ran across the road in the opposite direction. Shortly after that, my mom hung up. She said she was tired and that I was close enough to home. So I walked the rest of the way alone. The next day I told my friends what happened. Their reactions made me realize how terrifying it actually was. One friend told me she would have completely panicked. Another said she would have cried. That's when it finally hit me. Since that night, I've had a much harder time sleeping. I even started leaving a lamp on. Sometimes I feel uneasy inside my own house. I don't know if the two figures were connected. The one on the bridge looked much taller than the one on the scooter. But when I think about it now, I wonder if the deer I saw running away was connected somehow. Maybe it wasn't a deer at all. Maybe I saw something else entirely. All I know is that I've never felt fear like that before. Not once in my life. If you decide to use this story, you can call me Mal, or Mel for short. Thanks for reading. Thank you, Mal, for sending in your story. That sounds horrifying. I'm so sorry that you didn't feel like you had someone to properly comfort you in that moment. I'm glad that you're safe. I hope that your sleep has improved. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story with us. Okay, guys, let's get into today's final scary story. Here's my weird event. Hope you enjoy. All right, getting right into it. Let's go. From when I was born until I was about 5 years old, we lived in this house. It was one of the most rundown houses I had ever seen. It had shingles on the outside of it like a roof, but they covered the entire siding of the house. It was a 2-story home. I vaguely remember that as a baby, I would have these episodes where I would stop breathing and need to be rocked awake to make sure I survived. My parents had a baby monitor type of device that would alert them whenever my heart stopped, and they would have to come in and wake me up. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're okay. There was one night when they didn't hear it right away. By the time they noticed and my father came into my room, my crib was already rocking. Fast forward to when I was around 5 years old. Okay, we're just going to skip right over that, alright? There was always this woman by my side as a kid. Both of my parents worked. My dad was an over-the-road truck driver and my mom was a nurse. My sister, who's 4 years older than me, babysat me often, and we also spent a lot of time at my neighbor's house. They were like our second family. I didn't think anything weird was happening because this woman was always there. It's hard to explain, but she didn't have an actual face. It was almost like it was blurred out. The rest of her looked completely real. She never said much. She was just always with me. Never with my sister, never with my parents, just me. To this day, I ask my sister about it, and she still denies ever seeing anything. But I know what I saw. One day, my parents were fighting really badly, and I was playing with Legos alongside the woman. I don't remember where my sister was, but she wasn't home. The woman took me into my room and locked the door. Then we just continued playing. After my parents finished arguing, they came to get me and found the door locked. They were yelling for me to unlock it, but the woman wouldn't allow me to. She never said anything, but I think she knew my parents were fighting and wanted to protect me. There was never anything creepy about her. That house eventually got destroyed during a flood, and we lost everything. We moved into an old farmhouse about 20 miles away. The farmhouse had a weird vibe to it from the start. My sister and I were often creeped out. We would see things floating up and down the stairs. We would hear things. We would never go upstairs to brush our teeth in the upstairs bathroom, and our mom would yell at us constantly for it. But we were too terrified. My sister and I slept in the same room almost every night. We would hear something walking up and down the stairs, and whenever we were brave enough to open the door, we would see someone standing on them. I'm not convinced it was the same woman, but I am convinced she was there because she tried to protect us from whatever that thing was. She would lock me and my sister in our room and play games with us whenever the other entity was around. At this point, I was around 10 years old and my sister was around 14 or 15. We both know what we saw in that farmhouse. There was also a greenhouse on the property that was mostly used for storage. The people who lived there before us had left it full of old belongings. One day my sister and I went through everything inside just to see what was there. I found a porcelain picture of a horse's head. I thought it was the prettiest thing ever. I absolutely adored horses growing up, so I took it and hung it up in my room without thinking much of it. The strange occurrences continued. Eventually, my sister and I had just accepted we couldn't leave our room at night. We accepted that we were going to hear things. We accepted that we keep sleeping in the same room because our parents wouldn't believe us. Around this time, my parents got divorced. Whenever my mom was at work, it was just me and my sister at home. That was when most of the activity happened, even during the day. My mom eventually got tired of hearing about it, and we moved again, this time to a third house. I took the horse picture with me. The third house was only about 10 miles away from the farmhouse. I remember similar things happening there, but not as often. At this point, I was around 12 to 14 years old. The woman was still with me. She still protected me, still played with me, still kept me safe. But I never saw her face, just her form and a blur where her face should have been. Eventually, we moved again, and that's when she stopped following me. I'm not sure if she thought I was old enough to be on my own or if she simply wanted to stay where she was. But I never saw her again. When I was around 17 or 18 years old, I started researching the houses we had lived in. I remembered all of these experiences. Meanwhile, my sister had started claiming none of it ever happened. I needed answers. So I looked into the history of each house to see if anything stood out. In the first house, the one where everything started, I found a case involving a young woman. She had taken her own life in a closet after being abused by her father and becoming pregnant. She was only 20 years old. I'm convinced that she was the woman who protected me all those years. I think she just wanted to protect a child. As for the other strange things that happened in the farmhouse, that horse picture eventually fell off the wall and shattered. I tried gluing it back together. Every time I did, it would fall again and break in a different place. Maybe the woman was trying to tell me to get rid of it. Maybe not. Either way, I still think about her often, and I'm grateful she helped me through my childhood. I honestly don't know what I would have done without her. Now, as an adult, I still feel sensitive to things like that. I still see things, I still hear things. Nothing too crazy, but I know when something feels off. And to the woman who protected me all those years, I truly hope you found peace. Wow, what a sort of wholesome, heartwarming, but incredibly tragic story to end on. Me too, I hope that woman found peace. I hope that you find peace. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm a little bit sad now. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, please click the like and subscribe button. If you would like to purchase a Baphomet plushie, or if you know how to crochet and want to make one for yourself and buy the pattern, the link for my Etsy shop will be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepypasta, and I will be seeing you in the next video. Bye!